Oh, yeah, in Utah, isn't it?
Yeah.
Geez, we stayed there a couple nights in October. And I'll be darned if I can remember it.
I can hold it around, but that's okay.
Yeah, it was nice.
How far did you go? Did you go down to the southwest? Did you go to
Let's
Grand
see,
Canyon?
we did the Grand Circle, we saw arches and, that's
You go to Bryce
my
Canyon?
favorite. Rice.
Yeah, right.
That was,
All right.
I wanted to hear from Mars. That was,
All right.
I wanted to hear from Mars.
I know.
All right, I'm recording.
We saw Zion as well.
Okay,
It really was spectacular.
it is.
And I didn't realize how loved the national parks are. Just,
Using arches, you had to be there at 6 in the morning to even have a chance of driving through.
I think they were more around the Capitol Reef Park. They still have rooms there.
Actually, that
The
is,
next trip you take, you have to go to the southwest.
that's
The next trip you take, go
Needle.
to the southwest.
The Needles in, what the
Down
hell is it?
You know, Tombstone in that area, that's beautiful.
I'd love to see that.
Can't remember.
Yeah, this is what happened here.
I'm hoping Alex.
Oop.
Alex.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
There's no way.
All right, so I am recording and audio is on.
Looking at me.
Just get back. Did I hear it? Sorry. We'll just give Lance 5 minutes.
I was right here.
There he is. Eighth time what happened. You're in my chair. What's the trouble? Oh, really? Okay, we can begin. Okay, we call the meeting to order. Tonight we're looking at the extended look at the, how many acres? 30? The project is at the end of New York Avenue. You know, in looking at our consolidated plan and looking at our village code comprehensive plan, dealing with New York Avenue, we should be doing that before we deal with the actual site. What's going to happen on New York Avenue? And according to our code, New York Avenue has to be 26 feet wide, paved. It also, the village, with the planning board is going to want sidewalks going down to Curry Road from the site, which means probably taking, I'm going to guess, 12, 15 feet of the front lawns on the houses on New York Avenue on the west side, because that's the only side we can do this on. And I know the planning board does not have the authority to go and take land from the homeowners. We have to refer that from the village. From the village. Village land. Yeah. So we have to refer that to the village board. So what we're gonna do is refer that to the next village board meeting to look at New York Avenue. We want to resolve New York Avenue before we look at the site. But I just want to give you just looking at the site, what you submitted, I said, why are there 24 units? Why the change from 19 to 24? 20 is the trigger.
Oh, okay, that's a. Anyway, so this is a last. Based on the previous one, we kind of created a green space in the middle. The number of lots of this is up for discussion. We removed the lots of borders around. We proposing a sidewalk outside of the circle. And so the very in the middle of the village green, 80 feet to 100 feet wide. And so okay,
What I can't understand is why 24. You know that the village code says 20 is the trigger. 20 triggers never means
if
it's over.
you get into the circle, you can access lots from two directions. No, it's not like a single one, you get there, then you have an option. Yeah, but it's something, if that's what we should discuss.
Okay.
Then the budget complies with the cluster requirements as far as the unconstrained land. We revise the constrained land, so anything over 15% is.
I guess I guess our image of cluster development is like so different. I mean, I brought pictures in of typical cluster development, and I think when we were working with the other engineer, he even put pictures of cluster development on his plan, so he could, he said, this is what cluster development looks like. Yeah, okay, I would agree with that. But this looks like a regular subdivision to me. This looks like
Because we have this understanding what you think was a cluster development. And what I think was a cluster development.
right.
Cluster
So
development.
that would have to be worked out. Which is
There's a nuance of subdivision law as far as cluster development. I know you have the requirements. Cluster development basically is conservation.
right.
Now, how you manage your land on the smaller footprint, that's totally level of design and discussion with the local planning agent. So there's my reading for your comments was I thought that's what you kind of felt that I was putting up in space between the house. You have it here all over the. So that's what we're trying to do. There will be trees located along the circle. There could be some benefit inside of the green area. So it is a suppose it is a something. We have to create a lot for conveyance of the park.
I think we could work all that out. I think together we can work out what is cluster, what's not cluster. But my concern tonight is like, we got to deal with New York Avenue.
But no revenue as far as.
And as far as if I look at our plan, our village plan, to deal with that first. Before you even look at the site, we should deal with what's going on with New York Avenue. How are you going to deal with making the street 26 feet wide? How are you going to deal with sidewalks all the way down to Curly Road? How are you going to deal with the mound that's at the end of Curly Road? There's a big hill. I mean, how are you going to have to get bulldozers to take that hill down? I don't know. To widen the road.
This is very important to establish what is your right.
Oh, we have that. Yeah.
So if we have to do improvement, certainly I would want to do this in the limits of the right.
You will.
So in my letter, I said that we proposing to widen the York Avenue to 20 feet. So it's 20 feet long. I was looking at it as far as other improvements. You get for the speaker grades, you have to install instead of a ditch, now have to be like a big gravel and a pitch basin. Then widen
I think,
widen the front right there, going in, further out, with a pitch basin there, and tie it into the corner. Section.
to do any of that, we need the village board to approve the use of that land. To increase the 17 feet that exists right now. It is within the village right of way. But as a planning board, I believe we need to resolve New York Avenue before we even look at it. I mean, to me, that's a big sticker.
I would think from the developer standpoint, we'd want to do that. That's probably where the biggest costs that you're going to incur are the road improvements and the infrastructure improvements to serve that development. I think that would give you a basis for how many lots you're going to need to make it economically feasible to do the project. I think you really need to do that.
No, I am a planner, engineer, so I was kind of looking, yeah, I'm totally aware of the 20 feet from the house. But this project would improve the revenue, will improve the pressure in the area. So we're looking for negotiating with a couple more.
Yes, but you can't negotiate with this board. You have to negotiate with the board.
Okay, so
It meets next week.
yeah, so that, that's, that's what is what I propose. Now, we want to do this, I don't know on the sidewalk. But we don't know where is the sidewalk going to go? We have a sidewalk inside, so people can go around the great circle and access pass down the road. Going from Prairie to Road, Prairie to Road. That's something
When we built,
we have to educate.
when Amador came and did his project, we made him take his sidewalks all the way from his project down to Curry Road, and Curry Road all the way down to the bike trail. That's, we made him do that to get through it. We want a connection to the village. So we want sidewalks going from New York, all the way down New York Avenue to Curry Road, to connect that development to the village. You know, it's important that there's a connection to the village. We want the sidewalk for that. And I, you know, and I think the road has to be, according to our code, 26 feet paved. So I think whatever, you know, we're talking about negotiating, it has to be done with the village board. I don't have the authority to give you that land. It's village land. The village board does. So they're meeting next week. So we'll start. I don't want to waste a lot of time, your time, looking at what's the layout of the housing, of the development. I think New York Avenue is such a big issue. Let's get that out of the way. Then we can focus in on what is cluster development, how does it fit. So that's where I see this thing coming from. So before we waste time on negotiating on the actual site plan, let's get the road to the site plan, and then we can work on the site.
Well, realistically, we could widen the 20 feet if you require 26 feet, something really consider this.
It's not the board that require it, it's the village code.
This is your role, it's just, you know, we build a new road, for the spend. Or asking us to repair the road, or build on this property. And you know, that's what we have to be discussed.
Related to the road is the current road, as if I interpret the map that you're supplying correctly, has a water main running on the west side and a sewer line running on the east side. And it would seem to me that if you're going to be widening the road, that you're going to be involved in in improving that infrastructure along the road, in addition to changing the road.
Yeah, I know this is all hypothetical things, yeah. So
Well,
it has to be looked at.
It's,
You don't have.
it's not hypothetical until an approval is made. It's not a hypothetical issue. If those are the things that we are going to consider as a planning board, it's not hypothetical.
Well, first we have to cross, the point that, let's see if there is any issue, if it's a problem with the infrastructure. If it isn't, then I don't do it.
Or-
What we can see.
But then,
It's not a problem with infrastructure. If the issue is, our code says that street, if you develop on that street, it becomes a connected street, it has to be 26 feet paved. The code is telling us, this is what, it's not us saying, this is what we want. This is what the village code is telling us. This is what's required. This is what's required. The sidewalk is what we want. Sidewalk, it talks about it in our code, it talks about, but it's something that we want. We should have that connection to the village. So, you know, these are all real issues. As far as how bad, I think the road has to be 26 feet wide. I mean, that's what our code is telling us.
Yeah, I read the code, it's, I agree, because it's something that you have a certain character of the road, certain. You know, so that's what. That's something about the discussion. That has to be all the village, character.
I think it's all, again, it's up to the planning board to decide on how the code is saying it's 26 feet. It's up to the planning board. You want to negotiate. So whatever you do is, we can't even negotiate until we get past the village board. And that's what I'm saying. Next week, the village board meets, they meet once a month. And to meet with them, and ask them, you know, tell them that we need to have X amount of feet, I think 15 feet. On the west side of the road. It's there on the map to say, okay, we've got to have, there's room. But you got to get permission from the village board to do that. And then we come back and then we sit down and say, okay, let's talk about what's going on. But before we can even discuss that, I think we need to resolve the road.
This country is not here. This country was here before. Right before me.
The project came as a PBD, it was denied, PBD also was denied. And then,
Was this issue discussed again?
it never got that far. We never got past the site plan. We never got past, you know, is there a road in the back? How many units you do? Is we want the section to be less down the back? That's as far as we got. So that road second unit egress came in. That's when it stopped.
there was a project submitted in December of 2018, a revised project submitted in January of 2019, another revision in same month of 2019, and to tell the truth, all of them had exactly the same situation that we're discussing right now, which is anything that happens up there has to have a street that will handle the traffic.
No, in major area, I think the 20 feet by road.
You're not the village engineer. We have a village, you know, we have a village code that we have to go by. You know, village code says 26 feet. Right, when Amador put his road in, 26 feet. When Belmonte put his road in, 26 feet. They both exceeded 26 feet.
It's 26 feet. Addition.
You mentioned. He's not done yet. I'm telling you, that looks like it's wide.
You want to put it to one thing,
He's got to do a
you
lot
don't have
of,
a problem.
yeah, he's got a lot of issues.
I mean, the project, if you compare that project, which you approve, is a project like this, and the type of houses. what's the-
They're totally different. That project is a PBD, plan development district. So it's totally different than cluster development. Cluster development is just a totally different animal. This is our, this is dictated.
You know, we'll discuss it later. but
Yeah,
This is totally, most of the same projects that council is submitted, they are totally cost, they agree with your cost. What do you have to have in your code? You know, what make this clear? I'm trying to make this.
I see that. I love the idea of the green space in the middle.
I'm trying to make this
I
work,
think,
so.
I
You
can
like,
understand. I
you know,
can
the
understand
division.
why 24 units. I said, what's going on with the, why did he,
Well, there's a,
there's a,
it's only 4 more units.
Right.
For the benefit of improving the existing infrastructure, improving the pressure points, what is it unreasonable to ask for extra units?
if our code says that anything over 20 requires a second unit to be built. We're gonna go by the code. We're not gonna say, oh, because you're doing this, we're not gonna enforce the code. The code says that any more than 20
You know, I
units.
went to somebody to look at it. Yeah, so that was my.
We're not gonna, this, I don't think that's negotiable. That's real. That's our code. It's negotiable, zoning code. It's not. So I think what we have to do, so we can deal with that issue. I think
Okay, so you also.
let's resolve the.
You go to orders and shorten. You still keep the same concept.
Yeah, okay, I think you're on the right track. Okay, so let's resolve this New York Avenue. Go to the village board. And talk to them about it, and then come back to us. Because we can't look at that road. We want that road to be, okay, we got the road down, we can now go into the development.
No.
That makes sense, though.
Original, let's see what they have to say.
Yeah.
What tell us that we can improve, more energy. If you have an area.
Yeah, we do, yeah, we have. I mean, that's my feeling, is that,
I think I agree with pretty much everything you said. One other thing that I would encourage you to do though, is go up and try to define where that right of way is if you can. I do know for a fact that the house on the corner of Prairie Road and New York Avenue was surveyed recently, and there are property corners that are out on the road. And I think you want to make sure that your 40-foot right of way, which I believe New York Avenue.
it's a 50 foot.
Is it a 50
It's a 50. It's a 50, I have a map, I have a survey here of Pond.
Well, and, here, it will be found that we're ready for people to go to the, and first I want to be sure, I'm not really sure. I have to research that to make sure.
Okay, whatever, I mean, I'll give you whatever we have, too. I'll share whatever surveys I have, I'll share with you.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
It's not actually a right of way, it's full of, it's not a right of way, it's full ownership of the paved road and then sections which people consider their lawns now. But they really belongs to the.
People borrow, and maintain it. So we build strams, we destroy the compartment.
But one of the issues up there along a portion of the east side of New York Avenue is the hillside. So it's not a situation where it would be easy to extend the road in both directions, east and west. It's only it's physically, unless you want to build a bridge, it physically, realistically, you can only expand the width of the road to the west.
Well, if indeed there is 50 feet, that's quite a.
Again, that's what I was trying to say, is that be aware of that, be aware of where that 50-foot right of way is in relation to the hill. If 10 or 15 foot that right of way is over the hill, then that may be a problem for you. If it's all to the west
I
side,
understand. I have to know first.
No, I don't have anything that far. I go down as far as.
That-
No,
Oh,
I do have that. Right at the end of the.
from what I see here,
Oh, yeah.
Peter, that the paved section is here, which is, appears to be on this map, right in the dead center of 50 feet, but we know that the paved section of the road is really along
Right.
the
yeah.
hillside. So even though you've got ownership over the end of the road, you can't physically widen the road in that direction because of the hill.
Well, obviously. That's it.
So a written description of what you're asking the village board for, and a drawing would probably be very helpful.
Other point, I think, related to this, because you've got to go to the village board, is that this development's in need of a pumping station at the intersection of New York Avenue and Curry Avenue, if I'm not mistaken.
they're perhaps not there someplace,
The booster.
someplace.
Well, yeah, someplace, but
The booster station.
No, the bottom,
but
the idea was to put the pumping station not.
No,
You
we
can't-
you don't know that problem.
you can't draw on water that isn't there, though, can you?
No.
You can't draw on water that isn't there. If you don't have sufficient
Pressure.
pressure at the north end of Curry Avenue, how can you put in a pumping station and draw water that isn't coming up the hill by the current
No,
pressure?
yeah, that's the way to get it before we go and select the size of the booster station and location. We need to do a hundred foot. Because there is a loop. There is a water line going south. What's the other?
And Washington.
Washington Road.
About the road,
Yeah.
the water line goes up this way. So there's a way to do it engineering wise. And then have a pressure reducing valve, somewhere. In order to create.
Okay, I would just caution you then to be able, as you're negotiating with the village board, be able to explain to them how that's going to work, because that's going to be something, if you're using village property to put in that pumping station and also drawing on the village water main, the village board is going to have to know that it's going to work.
Could you explain, please, where does it?
Yeah, we will read you exactly.
Here's what I know about
Where
the
does
pumping
one,
station.
where do one, I can't understand you, I'm sorry. So can you explain to me where you're putting the pumping station?
It has to be a.
I won't call it a parking station, so the booster station. Or yes,
Right.
there is a lower
Where is
section.
the location that you want to put it?
It will be right on the project side.
Can you point to it on the map, please?
That's up on top of the hill.
Right.
That's on your property, correct?
Is that gonna work for you?
But
Probably not.
so
I
there's
don't
not,
think so.
I had a long conversation today with Mike Harrington about it, and he's recommending maybe we bring an expert in on it, because he feels like the pressure, even at the firehouse, is not, isn't adequate.
Pressure, we just marginally waive the expenses.
But he, yeah, so it's like.
That's something I really think you got to look at engineering wise.
there will have to be a separation of the high pressure area.
May well be.
From the low pressure area, that will be done by pressure reducing. Also, it.
You need to look at
That's why the
that.
pump station is.
You need to look at that very close.
Very good. So that's important.
Yeah, okay, I'm not, I think.
I just
that's
want
an
to say
issue.
that. You
That's
know,
an
I
issue
think that
for, I think the village board, where is the pumping station going? Is it gonna go?
I think it's very difficult for them to tell what the compensation is going now. They don't think you've got the full figures. The information on what flows available,
Yeah,
a bunch of different
Well,
locations.
that will be more or less for now what is there. Where that will be used for size of this.
Or even where, I'm not saying where you can locate it. I think Lance is absolutely right. If you get up to a point where there's only 20 gallons a minute available at 10 or 15 pounds of pressure up there, the booster station there isn't going to do a lot to supply 24 of those.
You can't suck water.
I know what's going to be there for do that, I know this, but it can be done. You know, once we have a concept of power.
All right.
We'll go out home.
So again, let me just say then, you need to prove to us that it can be done. You've got to bring in people that tell us it can be done. And there's a lot of things that I believe can be done, and I'm sure somebody else is going to tell me it can't be. So you're going to need, this is an issue for us. And
I
so
understand.
it's an issue for us because it affects other people's water pressure that already exists on New York Avenue.
But I want to do it in such a way so we have a lot of pressure for the houses, and we would design the system in such a way that we can create pressure for the existing home.
That's fine, but again, you've got to prove it. You've got to find somebody that can come and tell us that this is really what's going to happen.
And we can't
Because
get
I-
into the secret process without
Right.
reports on sewer, water, and traffic.
And in talking to the person who put the pipes in over 40 years ago, that up that street, that's an issue. I don't know if they're 8-inch pipes that go up,
I think it was 6, I'm not certain.
6?
I think I did 6.
Okay.
But when the water system was redone in the village 10 years ago, 15 years ago, or 20 years, all right, wow. Okay. At that time, they added a supply line that goes kind of between your house and Luce's house. It goes up the hill, ties into New York Avenue. So that was not there before. So that's kind of they need to take a good hard look at the whole system. My real guess is what you're going to do is you're going to put a pump station at the bottom of the hill, at the intersection of Goldfoot and Morris, or Goldfoot and Washington Avenue. That would be my guess.
No, I understand. I'm just telling you conceptually. But that's my problem as an engineer to show it to you.
Yep.
You know, so when I know we have a project, and we can, some realistically, we can move forward, and we'll do it.
Dumb question. New York Avenue, you got the east side. Is that where the current water line goes up? East side?
Water line goes up the west side.
According to the map, the water line is on the west side
Here's the sewer
and the sewer lines on the east side,
on the east side.
according to this
Yeah.
map.
Okay, so that on the west side, we need to have an extension of the asphalt, we need to have a drainage ditch, we need to have a sidewalk, and we can't bury the,
You can't we'll bury the water down the middle of the paved road.
We have a lot of that now.
One of
Most of the water systems.
One of them. I'm not saying that everything wrong is the side, but I want to put it on the west side either, something I would have to have. For the best solution. Why you have to, ultimately, we agree on something. I have to have an accurate survey, you know, that, all the way down to further on. Okay.
Now, I would imagine that we have, Johnny has, a superintendent has the plans for the water line. Where they want it. When you get that. mean, I would just imagine we would do on site, but I'm not sure. You know, my guess is looking at these drawings, these surveys, that, yeah, it looks like it's right. I can't, I can't go by, even looking at the survey, New York Avenue is probably not where it's marked on this drawing.
You think?
I don't know.
Because it's second concrete.
So
It's a survey, should be accurate.
Yeah, so it could be an issue, the water line and, the widening of the road.
I would think before the village board can entertain a request, that we would need to get that information to the applicant. Bring that to water. So.
I'm sure John has,
Yeah.
as-built maps, as-built drawings.
Yeah.
You don't have to maybe have to go.
I was looking at, I had the report. System. And look, there's evidence that it's on the west side. No, the hydrant is on the west side. And the hydrant is just on the outside of the pavement. So it has a leaking, so the water line is under the existing pavement. So certainly, when if you do any work there, it's going to be.
So you don't need our plans.
Okay. I mean, if you have something. Which is,
I can look, see what happens.
John,
Yeah.
they can wait, they can work it out.
Yeah.
Because I would want to know if you're going to do it soon. I would ask John, he can work it out. And we look at it, water and all soon.
We can have that done. I think we're gonna have John mark it, Gary.
No, everything is good.
Okay.
I will do everything.
So let's look at next steps. Next step is really, you decide, when do you want to go to the village board?
No. So that's one issue. As far as this plan, your first, what you said this is not possible. Conceptually, I was trying to do what I thought we wanted to have, so that the pilot is what's in the way.
Now, the board isn't saying no immediately. Board is simply saying it's the village board, it's the one that's gonna have to give the report.
I'm not talking about.
Right, you're saying you want to know. If you
I'm
want
talking about the layout.
Right, so I don't think you can do 24 units. I'm not going to let you do 24. I'm going to let you do 20.
So it's more. 40.
Yeah, I think 20 is the number, that anything over 20, yeah, or 20 or more, so 19 is the limit. Like you originally had, 19 units at the top of the hill. I'm not much about your layout, but it's something we can work through, I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of physical constraints up there in
No.
terms of the layout. But yeah, it was,
It's
to me,
a
it
lot
was,
better than what you
yeah,
had.
to me, it was surprising when you eliminated the 3 houses down on Morris Road, that you just didn't continue with the 19 up on the crest of the hill.
No, he's trying,
I explained that it's.
yeah, no, I know why he did. I like what he did. I like the green space. I mean, it's-
Oh, yeah. But the number, I'm
Yeah.
not talking about the
Yeah.
green space, but the number of lots.
Because it's, okay. One thing I'm gonna ask too is, the area outside of those lots, which will be protected open space. Is that something that really should be on?
Probably,
Okay. I mean,
yeah.
Was the compliance with the requirements of the pastor house, of the unconstrained line is buildable areas in the open space?
Yes, 40% of what the village. Yeah. Yeah,
It will be taken somewhere with stormwater management.
yeah,
But as far as, again, I situated the light green color, that's all.
yeah, I didn't take stormwater management. Mark, on these drawings.
The stormwater management is something.
So if it comes up to the planning board to decide whether the stormwater management area in the pond, is that buildable space or not buildable space?
That's what I'm saying, even if it is so dark.
You still have to not.
I still-
I think we're going in the right. I think there's just some major issues with infrastructure and getting to the site. And once we resolve those issues, we can tweak the site.
Stormwater management. Holding ponds that should be part of the overall plan that you show to us. In terms of calculation. And as you just pointed out, if you're thinking about positioning that a stormwater management holding area, you're well down slope of the building lots. And the other thing I would say is do not plan, in my opinion, do not plan stormwater management in the middle of that green space in the middle of the development.
The green space, trees around.
Yeah. So do you want, are you gonna, want to go to the village board next week or? Okay, so we could wait, they do that every month.
And we probably have to put that on.
Okay,
How often do you?
once a month.
There was a workshop usually on the first Wednesday. And the regular.
So is this better suited for a workshop? or- Yeah, okay, first Wednesday of the month. You pick the month.
Okay, so to get another agenda.
That's good. Yeah. okay. We'll put you on the agenda.
First Wednesday?
Yeah.
Next month, the 4th.
The applicant of the project is a business.
Yeah. Peter, thank you for last time I heard you said that. There was lots in the law and Morris Road. And then you kind of. Expressed tonight. They mentioned, if I heard you correctly, why don't you just subdivide off the property down below, and not make it part of this. Did I hear you correctly?
Yeah, you did.
So you could still do that,
You could.
and then keep the lots the way that you do. You just keep that land for later, maybe one for a house in
Right.
the future.
It's possible. Yeah.
So I don't need it to get this in down below.
No, if you could come in and subdivide your land. I wondered about that. Now,
Well, that's you, but you did that, so.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted.
Well, that was my thing. Seemed to me like it was a really opposition to something. Something that you can negotiate. You have a good land on the top of the hill. So we have a few extra.
I laughed at, to be honest with you, you had 3 houses down in Marshall. If you have, and the only way you would have to subdivide the land. to build those. The reality is, you could, if you subdivide that lot, whatever you have, maybe an acre, at least down there subdivided, that you had marked off for 3 houses, you could build one house there. That's about the extent of wetlands. You're encroaching on Army Corps, wetland, encroaching on buffer zones.
Whatever it ends up being, but.
Yeah.
Subdivide it out, just saying in front of him too, so that.
Yeah, and I wondered, have you dealt with the new land that you bought up there? Is that now part of this parcel, or is that separate?
You
parcel?
got Andy's house?
Yeah,
Or,
so it's been
Just a single platform.
I mean, not on paper, but it is on
on here.
the deed, but it's, yeah, it's on this concept of this, but it's still a separate deed. I didn't work for you, is that what you asked?
Yeah.
But as far as the Morris Road area, knowing the area not terrifically well, Fred probably knows it better than I do, but I cannot see that as a building site just based upon the contours that you show on the map. It is in this from Lansing that we got, there's that particular section is bordered by protected streams, both federal and state.
So I'd like to-
I would research that very carefully.
So that's what I'm saying, I don't want to bother with research. I
Right.
want to get this other thing going.
Right, yeah.
This is-
And so that's why I picked up this comment. I'll keep that. I want to do something later.
Yeah.
We'll sell to
Well,
somebody.
then there's definitely an offer.
I have to, of course, have to conform to all the laws and regulations. Planning that for ever decide to build something.
There's a subdivision process for the subdivide that property.
Thank you.
Yeah. I told you it's not gonna be easy.
I don't think there's any way to go where you want to do those tonight until we go to
The village board.
right. I don't know the laws and regulations. I count on you guys.
Someone we have to
I'm Bergen. I didn't know which, been through all this stuff, but I don't know. So I want to say. That's it, other than the brief. My impression of this is by no stretch of the imagination and any intent of the original cluster zone is this be considered cluster zone. And 24 proposed building lots. The proposal, if it's unclustered, it's no longer in the purview of the planning board, but instead becomes a subdivision. And our code, Article 8, Section 158(2), says as a major subdivision and not a clustered subdivision, that the plan should go to the village board with permission to proceed enacted only through plan development district, PBApril13. So in other words, if somebody decides this is a cluster, okay, I can. But if it's not clustered, if it's currently it's not clustered, it's out of your hands, goes to the, it's right in the code. On the building lot, number of building lots, in the code, and I can cite chapter and verse number. Lot sizes under RE1 zoning are a minimum of a third of an acre. This proposal calls for a minimum lot size, at least in one occasion, I can't use lot size in all, of 0.21 of an acre, which is a fifth of it. So either that's an outlier as lot size, or if there are others that are under a third, you can't have them. According to Tom, if you want to look it up, it's Article 158.42. Subdivisions with 20 or more lots need to lose 2 street connections, so you gotta, once you get it below 20, You gotta build another road. Another road like that. And then, what I don't see on that, I know it's conceptual, construction style, the article it also requires alleyways for parking and garbage pickup, parking between the homes, Victorian cottage style construction, front porches of at least 50% of the front part of the house. So that's again one article 155. And then talk about the road. I think we talked about that. But all those things in our code and in our master plan are required for sidewalks, curbs, infrastructure, intersection issues, street design with pavement, with and right away, all that stuff.
All that is very true, except for the idea with cluster development is to, you can make the lots as small as you want. You can have townhouses. I mean, the idea is to get as much green space out of the site as you possibly can. And that's what I have issues with. This looks like a standard development. It doesn't look like a cluster development. I can give you pictures of what a cluster development looks like. And it's like, the cluster houses, very close. Yeah,
So I've done this before.
yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, and I did a cluster development, that's for the regulations in Saratoga Springs. And it's much more substantial. And these lots are very similar size, and you can go drive through it. Meets the cluster subdivision definition by Saratoga standards, maybe a little different here. The cluster means that a traditional subdivision would be able to take all of the property that we and subdivide it, so these lots would become larger, then there would be no open space, it would be privately owned by the individual's purchase. The cluster provision that I'm familiar with, by definition, takes the property and reduces the lot sizes down. It doesn't necessarily decrease the number of lots, it just decreases the size of the lots to allow for all this open space that can't be, it's not owned by the owners, it's privately owned by the municipality or an association. And that's what this looks very much like the last open the cluster subdivision in Saratoga. So much so that they have a provision in their law that if you do a cluster, they give you bonus lots over a standard subdivision. So the benefit of making lot sizes smaller and providing open space, permanent open space, they give you density bonus. I know, don't think that. mentioned here. Right, but the point is that this, in my opinion,
No, I
is a cluster type of subdivision.
The lots don't have to be a third of an acre.
Right.
The idea is to get as much
A
space,
huge small.
much green space as you possibly can.
It's constantly, it's a conservation.
I think there are two things that are different. We had envisioned first that clusters would have a smaller number of houses. And so they would probably look at two separate clusters. And that the roads would go around the back of the house for parking and garbage and loading and unloading. And at the front of the house, you have a porch, you have a sidewalk, and you have a public space.
Okay, so that's an opinion of how you'd like it to be, but by definition of Webster's, that's not, cluster doesn't define where the driveways are. It's that there's an open space and a reduced lot size. So if you're looking for driveways behind, again, I'm not an engineer, you are.
Now, but we have 158-45B1 calls for alleyways for parking. Roads pickup. That is something that keeps the road behind the house
Right.
and keeps your focus on your neighbors in the park.
You know, I mean, that's a design. Well, here, we try to, there is a partnership, there is open space between the house.
To
And
address,
then, you know, the people from the rear, from the backyard, have access to the open space.
so what we'd like to see is the roadway behind houses, not front. Am I correct?
Yes, Or if not the road, then an alleyway that would access the parking facilities. So you don't have the ocean of cars in front of the houses.
So from a developer standpoint, and actually from a planner standpoint, if you're gonna ask for two sets of roads, a road in front of such as this, and now you have more green space and you have more impermeable space. I'm not sure that's really economically or environmentally friendly, but
You don't have to have two roads in front and back.
Yeah.
You simply have one road in the back.
no, nothing in the front. The road is behind
Just
us.
the sidewalk in the front.
Yeah, I see a lot of that around. And I never seen it actually. In new construction. And the roads are here. Is that something we have to do by law, or it's just something you like?
Remember they were wagon roads.
Far and curved.
Sorry.
So it's not a
Oh,
it's not a-
discourage.
It's not a requirement.
Gotcha. Definitely, porches, because I envision this being.
Nobody knows.
Oh.
Come on.
Vintage. So they're,
That's good.
porches, social, talk to people.
Yes. One of the nice things about the village is the porches are,
Yeah.
my porch is 2 to 3 feet from the road. People walk by and see.
Right here, next to your village hall, I park in front. And I sit there at cocktails, a little candlelight, and hang out with it. So I like that, I like make sure that. Thank you.
No, you're right. Listen, I think we covered this. I think
Yeah, thanks.
No.
that's not. Tell us what you're up to. Every day, the first Wednesday of every month. No, we'll discuss the, how we want to proceed, the timelines and, I don't know if you know. Maybe that's good.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Sorry to
we
drive
adjourn.
Thank you.
Gary, could I ask, when they do make an appointment to come to the village board, will the secretary of the village board make sure that we are all emailed that arrangement has been made?
I mean, good night, guys.
Bye.
The other business before the board?
No,
Put some comments out the record. I don't like your hat. So where are you recording?